John reached for a rock in the road and tossed it down Lake Malaran. The pebble bounced a couple of times on the frozen lake until it settled down in a plume of steam. It was early February, and the lake would melt soon enough. Time sure goes fast. It's been 3 weeks already since William offered me a place by his side in the journey of a lifetime. If I partake in this event, the odds of us making it out alive would not be in our favor. But John had already accepted. There was little doubt in his mind any longer. He had decided, and nothing else mattered at this point. He had dropped everything going on in his life. University projects, his amateur football team, Alma Cromwell. I cannot deny it any longer. Everything, virtually everything I have researched the last couple of weeks, points to one thing, and one thing alone. We are being lied to, and there is something going on. John had spent the time, following William's request, with researching everything he thought would be linked to the idea of the mother of all conspiracy theories, the deception orchestrated to hide the true shape of the earth. I have watched so many hours, days, weeks, and yet I know I have but scraped the surface of the belly of this beast. It's like a drug. Not that I ever was into opiates or anything of the sort, apart from the occasional puff of a sweet herb now and then, but this is more intoxicating than anything I have ever run into. It's so obvious what they are doing. The moon landings, the International Space Station, Skylab, the Gemini and Mercury programs decades past, the Space Shuttle, the Curiosity rover on Mars. Or the ridiculous Tesla Roadster allegedly launched by Elon Musk's SpaceX. Or the Challenger disaster. To label it as horse manure would be an affront to all horses in the world. It's much worse than that. And last but not least, space itself. Space is fake. It's also clearly fake. It's self-evident. It seems to be, anyway. When will the rest of the world wake up? Is anything real anymore? I'm going insane. Maybe I should scream my lungs out right here and act like a crazy person would, hoping that they put me in an asylum for my own sake and for the safety of my fellow man. Could be that I am suffering from scotoma, a scenario in which the person looking for something cherry picks what he wants to see. Maybe because I have been tearing my heart out, searching for concrete proof that this deception is true. Maybe I have misinterpreted some things. I don't know. I do not know. John knew that whatever lay in store for him and his companion down in Antarctica, heading down there would be a logistical nightmare. Reaching the shoreline of Antarctica will take weeks alone. And when we get there, then what? Are they really guarding the entire swath of that continent? One thing is certain, deception or no deception, misguided paranoia or well-founded suspicions, we are in for one hell of a beating. It literally is the end of the earth, as far as civilized society goes. Be it a sphere, or a plane. We would have to leave Sweden and disappear for months, most likely far longer than that. How does one explain one's sudden disappearance to the near and dear ones, without revealing the true nature of my exodus? Searching for the ends of the earth would be a cool prospect in the Pirates of the Caribbean film or an Indiana Jones flick, but now we are talking about this as a real thing. We have to lie. There is no other way. John tried to quit worrying, but it was a hard task keeping the demons in his head at bay. He walked down the paved road on Skeppsholmen and looked across the water and was bedazzled at Stockholm Castle all lit up in the night. Skeppsholmen had always been one of John's favorite leisure time walking destinations. A remote quiet island in the middle of the city. Secluded, yet in the thick of it. A perfect location for contemplation and a place to draw a breath of fresh air and tranquility. John decided to head over to the even smaller island, Kastelholmen, connected by a bridge at the end of Skeppsholmen. He took a detour and passed the Museum of Modern Arts on the way and considered for a second if he wanted to go in and have a look at the exhibition. It was pitch black inside and not a soul to be seen. Monday. Closed. Museums, just like the opening hours of banks, work in mysterious ways. John spun around and walked slowly down the slope towards the bridge. The thin layer of ice crust on the ground crackled under the weight of his boots, an eerie winter's sound that made him dream far away. Antarctica. I have never even been to the southern hemisphere. Or hemisplane. Whatever the case may be. What am I doing? John knew that he was pointed towards Antarctica, and he was not alone. Millions of eyes are now keeping a very close watch over Antarctica. Like the Eye of Sauron in The Lord of the Rings, the eye is now fixed on Antarctica. The eyes of those who are woke. John did not doubt that William had pennies to spend, nor did he question his burning desire to mount this expedition. But how experienced in this field is he really? How well will he handle the time pressure, the resources, the equipment, the treacherous area? Assuming we will even get down there. It's an area under quarantine for crying out loud. The Antarctic Treaty clearly states that independent travel below the 60th south parallel is strictly forbidden. What if the ominous, they, really are patrolling the entire shoreline down there? Has the United Nations set up a perimeter around the shoreline of Antarctica and militarized the hell out of it with soldiers, tanks, fighter jets standing by, and the whole 9 yards? Sounds ridiculous, but everything is possible. How will we evade the patrol? If what William told me of Jarl Landoy is true, that an experienced mariner was caught red-handed in Antarctica and turned away at gunpoint, why would we do any better, green as we are? And how well do I really know William Melton, when push comes to shove? What if he abandons me down there, if something goes south? What if? Despite all the questions surrounding this expedition, he did not want to bail. The decision was made, and John felt that one should stand his ground, even when dark clouds gather. As he walked the bridge over to Castle Holman, he laid eyes on a large, beautiful, medieval vessel, anchored at the right-hand side of the water. A grand old galleon that John thought resembled the old Swedish Army warship Vasa, which was on display across the other side of the water, at the museum bearing the same name. John had a sudden inner vision of him, William, and crew sailing down to Antarctica under stormy seas, where he himself stood by the tiller, steering the ship to uncharted lands. As if he was Captain Lucky, Jack Aubrey from Master and Commander himself. No, silly. It won't be that romantic a voyage, but one can dream. We are heading down to the very ends of the known world. I have no idea what we will find down there. Lands hidden from us. A physical electromagnetic barrier of some sorts. Perhaps at the end of the dome that some believe surrounds us. Are we inside a planetarium of sorts? So many questions, and so few answers, yet. But one thing is certain. I have never been more excited in my entire life than I am at this very moment. William looked outside the window of his old family residence. He squinted and could glimpse Dur's home golf course from afar, although it would be impossible to tell that patch of land was a golf course without knowing so beforehand. A thick layer of snow seemed to cover everything outside. Cars, houses, roads. He walked outside the house for a quick stroll and sighted a neighbor's house, with Christmas garlands encasing the house, and Christmas lights still turned on at full effect. In February no less. Some people need to learn about etiquette. He barely made it down the road of Valkyria Vagen until he heard a nasal-sounding cry from the porch of his house. William. Come back here. Where are you walking off like that, practically naked? At least put on a jacket. Come inside now. Dinner's served. All right. Let's get this over with. The voice at the porch belonged to his dear mother Clara, who had invited him and his sister over for the traditional February family dinner. Why his mother had sneakily launched the tradition of hosting bombastic dinners in February of all months, William did not know. He walked back into the house and gallivanted slowly through the halls of the not-so-humble abode. He strode into the dining room and laid his eyes on the glistering chandelier hanging over the table. Just as I remembered it. A mausoleum more than a house, this place always was. It was well over a year since last time he graced the mausoleum with his presence. He preferred staying in his one-room apartment in central Stockholm, in the district of Östermalm. This place rekindles many a childhood memory, and not in a good way. Nostalgia won't help me right now. I want to look forward, not backwards. They gathered around the large oval mahogany table in the dining room, and William looked around him. The walls surrounding them were adorned with all sorts of ornaments, beautiful 19th century paintings depicting what appeared to look like a fox hunt in England, as well as more exotic drawings of elephants, tigers, and lions. Silvery trinkets from far and wide, and even taxidermized birds of prey hung from the walls. Falcons, those are. Might be hawks. Do stuffed birds always look this dour, or is it just the setting? William walked towards the fireplace at the far side of the hall and reached for a shiny rectangular object on the mantelpiece. A hip flask that looked familiar. William looked at the side of the bottle and found the words engraved on it. Theodore Milton, 1954. Oh boy. I forgot to bring this one with me when I moved away from here on my 18th birthday. Has it been collecting dust here on the mantelpiece for 8 long years? The hip flask had been a gift from his grandfather many years ago, who had now passed on. Maybe keeping a hip flask around when I'm out and about wouldn't be such a bad idea after all. There will be a time to come when I might want to drown my sorrows away, and there's no drinks cabinet nearby. William. Take a seat, commanded Clara. William abided and pulled out a chair and sat down on the far end of the table. Vera, his sister, entered the room wearing an exquisitely beautiful white gown. Vera took a seat on the opposite end of William, and she nodded towards him playfully with a smile on her face. We meet again, dear brother. So it would seem, he said and looked her in the eyes. He grabbed a napkin in front of him and polished his glasses and placed them on the table. The catering staff brought the supper in. Freshly caught lobster from the west coast of Sweden with homemade mayonnaise, sourdough bread from the local bakery, and other delicacies. Clara brought in a tall stool and climbed on top of it with a box of matches and lit the chandelier herself. As if by the flick of a spell wand, the whole room came alive. For 1 second, the house no longer has the aura of that of a desolate mausoleum. Imagine that. It's almost a home now. With emphasis on almost. Lobster once again. I was in the mood for something a bit more plain, cried Vera. If you want plain, you shouldn't have bothered showing up, sneered her mother. William and Vera had little in common, save for their rebellious nature and their raven black hair. While Vera was as light as a feather and naturally blessed with the body of a gymnast in her prime, William had always been a bit on the chunky side. Unlike William, Vera was not cursed by the poor eyesight that had befallen him. I remember when she used to tease me for my Harry Potter-like hair. Those were the days. A carbon copy of the wizard, apart from the weight anomaly. I was bothered then, but no longer. Words don't get under my skin any longer. We tolerate one another these days. So, how's my nerdy brother doing? Still a bachelor, are we? You aren't getting any younger, you know. I retract that last part. Yes, I am still single if you are asking, he murmured. Like you have been your whole life. Shucks. Mother, pass me the peppermill, will you? This lobster lacks a bit of punch in the spice department. Who the hell wants to ruin a delicacy like lobster with black pepper? You're weird. Look who's talking. Quit yapping, the both of you. Said Clara and raised a glass of Bordeaux claret to her lips. Let's just enjoy our family dinner. Family dinner -1, Vera observed. Where's father? Is he out touring again? Where's he now, Indonesia or something like that? Perth. It's in Australia, said Clara. I knew Perth is in Australia. Sure you did, William whispered to himself. Australia. If either of them only knew how close to that location I am set to find myself en route to within a span of just weeks from now. Maybe we should even set off from somewhere in Australia as our last harbor before we sail to the final frontier, Antarctica. It would be a logical move. A few days in paradise before we walk the land of eternal winter. It's summer down there as of right now, said William. I'm sure he's better off than we are in this frostbite we have right now up here. Clara studied them both with a look of angst. William. How's it going for you, in school and all? What's coming up next for you? Oh God. What shall I tell them? Even the most honest of men would lie at this point. She would never understand, even if I told her the truth. I have to think of something. Whatever works. Actually, we're going south. Heading to as Todd for a couple of weeks. You may not hear from me for a while. Might even be a month. As Todd. A month? What brings you there, and when are you going? Clara was confounded. The first week of March, he said as confidently as he could. By train. We're going to stay at a bed and breakfast, and then if time allows it, drive over Øresund to Copenhagen. Vera looked at him with a mischievous look on her face. Doesn't sound like you at all, big brother. Doesn't sound like you at all. Heading down to the countryside just like that, in no man's land. Are surprise voyages out of the blue really your hallmark? I doubt it. No man's land. She's closer to the mark than she thinks. Even Clara had her doubts. It does sound a bit odd. And for so long. What are you going to do down there? What in the hell does one do in as Todd, and why did I even mention it? As Todd, Wallander, Mankell. We're going to a Wallander museum. No. Wallander has nothing to do with my class. To visit the Mark Twain residence. Did you not know that he stayed at a house in as Todd during the late 1800s? He had a modest-looking patch of land there and a house right next to the beach. As you know, we are currently analyzing the adventures of Huckleberry Finn, a project that will be crucial if I ever aim to graduate from that hellhole. We are going down there to breathe the fresh air and seek inspiration. Think of it as some time off, a little bit of escapism. Neither of them will know I made every bit of that up for 2 reasons. I doubt very much that they are well read enough to know that Twain did not take up residence in Ystad nor in any Swedish city. And on top of that, I don't think they would even care to look it up. Sweet, big bro. Moving up in life. William had tired of the passive-aggressive dynamic and could not stomach dining with them any longer. He cleared his throat and rose from his chair. Ahem. If you don't mind, I will take leave a bit early. I do mind. We've barely eaten. That may be the case, William said. But I have pressing business to take care of. And oh, mother. Could I take a quick look in father's room before I leave? I am in need of some sturdy winter clothes, among other things I may find up there. As Todd is terribly cold this time of year. Argentina, Australia, or New Zealand. I feel like we should set off from Tierra del Fuego, which is located on the border between Argentina and Chile. For no other reason, other than I like that there's an area called the Land of Fire next door to Antarctica. Ushuaia. John took a sip of coffee and looked for a reaction from his friend across the table. They had met at William's favorite cafe, located next to the beautiful Vasa Park, Ritorno. But then again, you're the guy with the dough, and you are the brains behind this notorious voyage we are about to embark on. So, you call the shots. I'm still weighing the options on where we should go next. You will take care of the bill for all of this, right? Like you said, when I accepted this offer. I can't accompany you on this expedition with funding from my own pockets, because they are about as empty as a bird's nest in December. William nodded. Of course, don't worry about it for a second. Like you said, this is my brainchild. I want you to come, and I want you to make it to the end. Not everyone is born with privilege, and it has not always been to my benefit. But now, it most certainly is. I will foot the bill for everything and spare no expense. John gave him a pat on the shoulder. You're a good friend. William smiled. We have planning to do now. Your 3 picks are all viable. They are all nearby to our final destination. Might even throw in South Africa there as an option. William pulled up his cell phone and opened the Google Maps application. He studied the lines of longitude in the southern hemisphere and measured the distances from various points in Africa, South America, and Oceania. South Africa is too far away. Too far away from the South Pole. There is no such thing as a South Pole, William reminded him. There's only a ceremonial South Pole. Remember what Celeste told you. You have to unlearn what you have learned. Why would the compass point towards north on a ball, anyway? Think about how much sense the flat Earth makes, with a magnetic force in the North Pole, the true magnetic north. What makes magnetic declination in the north win, so to speak, over the south on the globe? It makes no sense on a sphere, and it makes all the sense in the world on a planar surface. John took another sip of his cappuccino, and his eyes wandered around to the cafe patrons. A part of me wishes that I was still asleep. A zombie walking around and doing things mindlessly, forever stuck in his mundane bubble, consisting of first world problems and so forth. Back to when the days consisted of complaining about the poor roster of quality movies that Netflix has to offer, and worrying about not having the latest material gadget out in stores. I am on the verge of piercing this bubble. But for the rest, how will the world react when the few becomes the many? An awakening from a mass hypnosis for this long could only end in blood and chaos. We live in a most intriguing age, and I am lucky to be alive. William chuckled for himself. What are you so happy about? Well. I remembered a stunt I pulled yesterday on my mother and sister. I used Mark Twain to evade a pickle. What pickle? They cornered me yesterday at your show. I was asked by why I would go away, and I made up a story about us heading down to his Todd to check out some imaginary lodge where he lived. I should try lying more often. I seem to be good at it, he said and laughed. What did you tell your folks, by the way? John paused. I haven't told them anything. William waved a finger. You should, and be quick about it. We have to depart soon. Even if we had an armada to our disposal, we don't want to explore the edge of the world in complete darkness. I will, he assured. William took a bite of the cheesecake that the waiter just had brought in for him. It's funny how I used Mark Twain to get out of that trap. One of his most famous quotes is serenely perfect if you attribute it to the flat earth conspiracy. Not that Twain was a flat earther by any stretch, heavens no. But it works all the same. John was befuddled. The rumors of my death are severely exaggerated. Wasn't it something like that? Not that one. The quote is this: "It's easier to fool someone than convincing them that they have been fooled." Never heard that one. Well, the man said it, and it's so true. It's so hard to make people even look into this with an open mind. Their ego, whether they would admit it or not, simply would not allow them to stoop so low as to investigate the foundations. Cognitive dissonance. William leaned back in the comfort of the puffy leather chair. "Want to hear another quote?" John sighed. "I guess you'll tell me whether I say yes or no, so go ahead. Make the lie big, keep it simple, and eventually they will believe it." Who is it this time? David Icke. A man named Adolf Hitler, in fact. Charming. Isn't it? I'd say that quote is one of his few good contributions to mankind, because it's accurate. Along with the Autobahn, perhaps. Indeed. William took a sip of his espresso. Our next move, yes. Do you know who I'd like to sit down with for a quick conversation? The name of that man is Sir Ranulph Fiennes. He is the only person in the world who currently is on record for having traversed Antarctica and having completed a full north-south circumnavigation. Naturally, I don't believe for a second that he did pull this feat off, since a north-south circumnavigation is impossible for obvious reasons. He is a proven liar in court, but he might still be keeping some interesting information close to his chest, things he saw down there that would be useful for us to know. I wager that he pushed far inwards. Let's give him some credit, so a couple of 100 miles until he gave up and decided for his own safety to head back, but he wasn't going to return empty-handed, so he turned around and lied that he crossed the entire continent. That is what I believe. What did he lie about? And who is he, more specifically? Let me punch up Wikipedia on the phone, because his full name and title is so ridiculous that you might think I made it up. William went to Wikipedia and found him. Voila. Behold Sir Ranulph Twisleton Wykeham Fiennes, 3rd Baronet, of somewhere, it doesn't say. Anyway, he is a notorious explorer and cousin to the Queen. His name sounds parodical, does it not? Like some character from Family Guy used to mock the British upper class. In any case, he is accused for forgery and was convicted in court for the very same crime. His accuser was a young woman whom he traveled with, and he faked an injury because he wanted to pepper up the video documentary they filmed with him. He wanted to amp up his exploits to the public in order to appear more heroic than he actually was. Sounds like a charming man, John said sarcastically. So he is the only person in the world who claims to have traversed Antarctica. That is correct, with a strong emphasis on claimed. There are many who have reached the ceremonial South Pole they've put up there, of course, but that is another fiver entirely. My point is that we are literally off the charts here, we are on stranger tides. There is no one we could really ask about this without garnering unwanted attention at best. It would be a fool's errand. Of course there are some people who must know, the ominous they, but it's not like we are going to get any help from them, whoever they are. They would know exactly how far the ice extends from our known world and what lies beyond if there are other Earth-like craters far away on this plane we call home. I assume you know that there are many who believe that we live on an infinite flat plane. Yes, of course. Some believe it goes on forever, and others are adamant that there is a dome at some point you will run into, enclosing the world. Like the Bible and the Quran speak of. Exactly. Let me give you a visual though, so you understand precisely what I'm talking about. William handed the phone over to John, who saw a familiar image appear on the screen. It's only a theory, of course. But a hell of a thought-provoking one. Imagine if there are other Earth ponds adjacent to our little puddle. John's eyes widened. I've seen this picture before. Imagine if this is true, holy smokes. Instead of the infinite universe of space, an infinite Earth. William's eyes glistered. Seeing this makes me want to just hop a freighter, or an icebreaker more like, and just delve right into that ice and keep going. Full throttle ahead, and just smash the ice right through, but that would not be realistic. What is the most probable alternative, do you think? Finding additional land, or that the Earth simply ends at Antarctica, and that's where you'll find the dome firmament. Admiral Byrd did say that there are lush green lands down there in that interview. If this is the case, it makes perfect sense that they would want to keep us on a ball. And if there's minerals and other metals and natural resources to harness. You're starting to get the hang of this, John. But in any case, even if there is land and an ocean of natural resources like oil or precious metals, the monetary gain always comes in second. Money's no good if the small folks decide to call for an uprising against your rule. Even if you are fine with being king of the ashes, it would be most unwise to play with fire like that. We've been over this before. The human species simply could not handle such an abrupt cosmology swap. If the earth is flat, then there absolutely must be a creator of this place. And if we were created, well, yeah. Everything changes. Even something deemed as fundamentally true, like evolution, goes out the window for obvious reasons. Atheism would simply self-destruct within no time and would be a crisis of faith. What now, people would ask. Which God is it? Which religion is true? Those are dangerous questions to ask, my friend, and the deceivers asked themselves these very questions as they made the hard call not to tell the public. For all the flaws that science has, with their cult-like narrow-minded consensus think. Do we really want to revert to the church? Do we really want to hand over the keys to the city, to the Vatican or some other religious doctrine? Inquisitions, witch trials, other horrific things done in the name of God. There's no saying such archaic procedures could not resurface again, should science collapse on its own head. John nodded. I can definitely see the problem. Should science fall, which it will if the globe is proven to be hoax, then everything else will spiral out of control in a domino-like effect, because the faith in the scientific community will be absolutely demolished. There could be a power vacuum left in its stead. If we are to give the conspirators some credit, they might have chosen the lesser of two evils by not throwing the false scientific paradigm under the bus, considering it could have gotten worse had they done so. Especially not if your life work is on the line, like the celebrity scientists of today, said William. Take Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Cox, Bill Nye, and Michio Kaku. If the accepted model of the universe is false, then, well, you can see the problem. They have spent their entire lives preaching this model, and therefore they could not possibly concede defeat in this arena. There is no way at all. Even if they stared the bulletproof evidence right in the face and saw the truth, they would deny it to the very end. John took another sip of cappuccino. So, it's up to us to lift the veil. Two average students in their upper 20s, lost in the world. I'm not so average. And more peculiar things have transpired throughout history, John. Have they? They laughed in unison, and John's spirits were high. Maybe we could actually pull this one off. John cleared his throat. There's something you said that I'm wondering about. Maybe it was just a random choice of words, but do explain nevertheless. Let me think. Yes. That we are up against satanic powers. That day when you asked me to join forces with you on this escapade. I know that many astronauts of today, and even more so back then, were Freemasons, like the 33rd degree, ring-wearing Mason Buzz Aldrin, but what do they have to do with Satanism? William's smile vanished instantly. It wasn't a random choice of words. We are literally up against Luciferians, and make no mistake about it. This is no child's imagination I am spewing here. Their occultic symbology has shown through ever since the inception of NASA. Like what? If they are satanic, they certainly haven't telegraphed it. At least not to me. Well, you have to look into it a bit deeper than just taking it at face value. Let's start with the NASA logo. What does it look like? I think it's blue and there's stars. William smiled knowingly. You don't remember it, do you? Well, not exactly. Let me refresh your memory. William made a hand gesture to John, signaling that he wanted the phone back. He held it for a moment, googled something, and handed it back over. What do you see? Well, I wasn't too off the mark, was I? Blue starry background. White font, capital letters, and some kind of red forked line in the middle of it. And there's nothing about this logo type that draws your attention. John looked into the eyes of his friend, who had that unmistakable gleam in his eye. What is he thinking about? What could possibly be sinister about such a generic logotype? Not really. All right. Give me the phone back, will you? John abided, and when William once again got the phone back and handed it swiftly back to him, he understood. Okay. I see the connection now. This is the logo for the Russian space agency. Yes. It's the same weird red stroke that kind of looks like 2/3 of an incomplete triangle. What does the symbol mean? That, my friend, is the vector symbol. Sometimes called the chevron. An esoteric and occultic sign, cherished by many of the satanic forefathers in the modern era, such as Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons. Why do they flaunt this symbol in their logotypes? It isn't just Roscosmos and NASA, John. Every single space agency that exists for some reason uses this symbol as their official insignia. JAXA, the South Koreans, the Chinese, SpaceX, they all have decided to use this symbol. Well, maybe they just sat down at some point when they were at the dawn of space exploration in the 50s and just picked that symbol and decided it should represent aeronautics. To play devil's advocate here, it doesn't necessarily mean that they selected it for sinister reasons. Maybe. It could just be happenstance, but after everything you've learned until now, do you really doubt for 1 second that there is not a deeper meaning to be found here, rather than it just being a coincidence that the space agencies of the world all use a satanic symbol in their respective logotypes? It's like they are all paying homage to something. John was confused. So now the conspirators, who deceived the world with surgical precision for all these years, are Satanists. Didn't you and Celeste try to convince me that they are hiding the truth for the greater good of mankind as a way of keeping the peace? That it was a white lie, so to speak? William nodded. I know I said that. What I'm trying to tell you is that I don't know. I don't know the exact reasons as to why they decided to conceal the truth or whom they serve. I'm just saying that it is eerie how the space agencies since day one flirted so openly with Satanism, Freemasonry, and other secret societies. I am absolutely convinced that the Freemasons are in the know of this deception. On what scale though? I do not know. Why are you so sure? Buzz Aldrin being a 33rd degree Mason means that he could very well be in the know of something, sure, along with a lot of the other Apollo astronauts. But at the end of the day, it's only circumstantial evidence. Joining the Freemasonic order was rather common back then for men in their age. I doubt you have any proof that the Freemasons know that the earth is flat. Whether or not they are in on the conspiracy, the Masons clearly know of it. They've known for centuries that the earth is a plane. A couple of months ago when I was hot on the trail, I went to the old Masonic temple in central Uppsala to have a look around. I strode around their hall and searched for something that would confirm my suspicions. The frescoes in the hall clearly showcase geocentric symbolism, like a sun and moon of same size attached to the vault of heaven, a firmament. But I wanted something concrete, and eventually I found a couple of books stored away in an alcove. I rummaged through them and grabbed the one that piqued my interest the most, which I borrowed. Stole, you mean? Oh please. Semantics. I read through the tome during the weeks that followed and nearly gave up. I did not find anything of interest, and it was quite a dull read to be honest. Until page 83. I'll show it to you, he said and placed the book on the table. A leathery, fringed tome with a purple background now lay before his eyes to see. On the cover of the book, John spied a most familiar symbol adorning it. The square and compass, and the letter G. The emblem of the oldest secret society in world history. William turned the pages until 83 and cleared his throat. The square is a right angle, formed by two right lines. It is adapted only to a plane surface and belongs only to geometry, earth measurement, that trigonometry which deals only with planes and with the earth that the ancients supposed to be a plane. The compass describes circles and deals with spherical trigonometry, the science of the spheres and heavens. The former, therefore, is an emblem of what concerns the earth and the body. The latter of what concerns the heavens and the souls. Interesting, said John. Goes beyond interesting for me, my friend. The book makes sure to mention the use of these two tools. And how they're used and represented as far as earth and with the heavens. They know, John. They know. Most certainly, this truth is passed along at the upper echelons of their order. A 33rd degree Mason like Aldrin would certainly have known, even long before they faked the moon landings. And there's no wonder why these astronauts kept their mouths shut. They were sworn to secrecy to their fraternal brothers. I guess it is possible. I think it is entirely plausible that men can keep secrets for a lifetime if the motive for it is strong enough. Protecting their sworn brothers would qualify for that. Freemasonry is deceptive and fraudulent. Its promise is light, its performance is darkness. Tesla? No. John Quincy Adams, 6th President of the United States of America. Fancy that, said John. William closed the book and looked John in the eyes. Speaking of their ties to secret societies, the occult, and the weird symbology they are programming us with, there is one more thing I'll have to show you. NASA put out a new picture of the Earth recently, which at first glance does not look like anything out of the ordinary, other than the image appears to be more cartoon than real, but that's old news. We know their pictures are fake. What is interesting with this one? Well, it goes a bit deeper than it just being fake. Let me show it to you on my phone. Here it is. John squinted and leaned as close as his eyes would permit in hopes of spotting something noteworthy. India is cloudier than usual. No, that can't be it. Beats me. I don't know, it looks like another photoshopped picture. William grinned. Exactly. On surface level, like every picture the powers that be put out, they appear to be harmless and plain at first sight. But they work in mysterious ways, my friend, they do. Once you are deep down this rabbit hole, you begin to see hidden messages everywhere. Everywhere. Nothing is left to chance, and everything has a purpose with these people. Everything is planned. They have plans that could stretch as far as hundreds of years in advance for their agenda. Just tell me where to look, damn it. I will show you. But I'll have to pull up another version of this picture. Oh, here. Here we go. John gasped. What the hell? What is that? Where? How? The image is reflected. Flipped. Turned inside out, so to speak. If that isn't some subtle satanic programming they are showering us with, then I don't know what is. Look at this, John. Look at this devilry. These people are cut from a different cloth than us. And I can't wait for the rapture to come for these creatures perpetuating this. Jesus Christ. And this is really an official NASA picture reflected. Yes. Dear God, whispered John to himself. I'm legitimately scared now, I think. Where are we? Where the hell? Where? Where are we? Where are we? William put his right hand on his shoulder. I don't know, my friend. I don't know, and I wish more than anything that I had the answer to that question. I wish I knew what was going on. But I don't. I don't know why these people are doing this. But there's got to be a reason. There always is a reason. John closed his eyes and tried to focus. Dear Lord. I can't take this. What the hell is happening? They fell into silence for a somber minute or two when they just stared at one another with nothing to say until William continued his conspiracy barrage. By the way, do you know what gematria is? Gematria. Gematria. Gematria is the method of assigning numerical values to words, letters and phrases. Each letter has a specific value. There's a whole slew of people who study this field. Gematria is mainly used by Hebrew scholars who attempt to interpret Jewish texts. Well, pardon me for interrupting, but what's the point? I'm sure this is very interesting and all, but do get to it, asked John. Fair enough. What do you think the numerical sum of the letters are, if you count the letters in these 4 words? National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Well, only one number springs to mind that would fit the bill with his theory. The number of the beast, 666. William nodded. You guessed it. Like I said, this could all just be coincidental, but there's just too much stacking up in favor of that we truly are up against a Luciferian brotherhood, eager to usher in the New World Order. The New World Order is, I know what the NWO is. William was truly surprised, and it seemed for a moment that it put a dent in the plate armor of his conspiracy tale. Ah. Well, maybe you aren't as green as I thought. Everyone knows the theories of the New World Order and their one world government plan, the Georgia Guidestones, and the Illuminati. Even my grandmother does, and she is well over 80 years old. William waved it all away. Well, let's not get sidetracked. Now let's segue into what really matters, where to go next. Nice deflection. One of my many talents. But let us get to the matter at hand. You suggested a few locations, and they are all sound. Although, for superstitious reasons, I think I would like to avoid New Zealand. John was puzzled. Why? Because their Coast Guard captured Jarl Andoy, the rogue Norwegian sailor I told you about. When he set off from New Zealand and sailed to Antarctica, they followed him and caught him. I don't want to fall into the same trap. It might be that the other countries on the list are just as militant as New Zealand is when patrolling their oceans. Might be, but I want the odds to be in our favor. How about Australia? Practically the same thing, isn't it? Said John. Not at all. Australia is about as large as the United States in area. New Zealand might be their next door neighbor, but from what I know, they are much more tight-knit and far more isolationist than their big brother to the west. John tried his best to shut out the inane shouts and babble from the crowd in the cafe. He shut his eyes and tried his best to focus on the logistical hindrances ahead. Okay. So, we are departing Sweden in early March to an agreed-upon strategic position from where we will sail or fly to Antarctica. And somehow along the way we will manage to recruit strong men at arms to accompany us on this voyage. I do hope you have it all planned out, because I sure don't." William smiled. "Well, neither textbook nor holy scripture will guide us through our lofty quest, John. We are about to embark on a journey beyond all sanity and reason. We will travel, to use a tired old television show tagline, where no man has gone before." Well, not strictly true, since someone or some folks in plural have clearly mapped this place out, right down to the last grain of sand, and those ominous few kick this deception in motion. And when grievous things are in motion, they can rarely be undone. My guess is, naturally, that Admiral Byrd found the cold hard proof that shows that we don't live on the exterior of a sphere. It is crystal clear to me, John, that they are hiding land from us. If the Earth isn't a sphere, the possibilities are truly endless. We will travel beyond uncharted territories, literally. I'm not going to pretend like I know everything, or what exactly we will find down there. But two things are certain. They are absolutely lying to us about space, and they are lying to us about Antarctica. They are hiding land, and they are hiding God. What I am trying to say is that there is no guidebook on Amazon that will help our endeavor. John leaned his head backwards in the coach and cozied up, staring to the ceiling. I'm not going to argue with you on that one. I realized from the moment I agreed to this that we would be taking shots in the dark. John spied a troubled look in William's pudgy face as he spoke those words. I think most of the decisions we take from here on out should be made by following our gut feeling. We should find the hidden lands on our own. Hold on. I thought we were to hire a crew. You said that, yes, we will. But I think we should only tell them a half-truth upon hiring them. Nobody in their right mind would ever accompany us on this if they knew what we were truly searching for. Let's just tell them that we are two bored, spoiled kids who want to reach the ceremonial South Pole and then head right back. Naturally, I will empty my coffers for this. I'll pay them handsomely. They are just going to have to journey onwards with us for a little longer than they first thought. Your plan is morally questionable. There's a risk in alienating fellow crew members with methods like that. If we tell them to push even further, unlike what they would agree to in the first place, it's not a good place to make enemies. What if they turn on us, if they feel like we have tried to scam them? Then we would be all alone, in a sea of white nothingness and rugged crew members at our throat. Maybe. Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. But it's the best one we've got. I can think of no other scenario for us if we do want professionals on board. Like you said, they would never in a million years agree to come with us on this, not even if the paycheck was 10 times thicker than whatever you plan on coughing up. They would not take it seriously. William nodded in agreement. Fortune favors the bold. And we are going to Australia. That was quick. So, it's settled then? Yes. I'm making a call. It just feels right. And my father is down there. I don't know if it would be a good idea to contact him when we are trying to keep a low profile, but in case of an emergency, he might help us. And he can keep a secret. Even so, we wouldn't tell him the full nature of our little clandestine quest. Australia it is then. I'm trusting your judgment. I guess there's just one thing left to say, William announced and raised his cup. Cheerio. Do you know what's engraved on the headstone of Wernher von Braun? William's shout was barely audible as the wind gusts blowing through the Perth airport drowned out the sound. They had just landed after flying from Stockholm with a quick layover at Dubai and from then on straight to Perth. Jesus, William. Can't we continue this when inside? I can barely hear a thing. We have plenty of time for conspiracy chinwag. Let's not talk about these things in this ridiculous noise. Not to mention the smoldering heat. Jesus. Let's make it off the airfield first. As they hopped aboard a transit bus that took them from the airfield to the airport, John almost fell asleep from jet lag exhaustion. 22 hours in total. I hope this is worth it, William. I need a drink. And why didn't I bring a cap? The sun is more intense here than I have ever felt before. Those winds that just blew through were heavenly though. Let's hope the weather gods keep their good work up. As they stood waiting for their luggage to arrive in the baggage claim room, William leaned over and spoke softly. Psalm 19:1, by the way. The answer to the question I asked before. I didn't hear a word. What's on the headstone of whom? Wernher von Braun. Von Braun. The name does ring a bell. Was he involved in NASA? Correct. Not just involved, however. He was the head of NASA. Oh. And on his headstone, there are no last words nor poetry. Just that Psalm 19:1. How well do you know your scripture, John? I don't. I'm not Christian, nor do I subscribe to any other religion. Well, if you were, you would have known that this psalm he chose is mighty curious indeed, with our eyes. Tell me. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament sheweth his handiwork. John was intrigued. One word stood out like a sore thumb. Firmament, whispered John to himself. William smiled. Exactly. The firmament. Now why exactly would the director of NASA, the man who oversaw the early phase of space exploration, leave us a breadcrumb like that? If one's conspiratorially minded, which you are, said John with a smile. Whom we are, John. The both of us now. I may have turned you to the dark side, if you will. And you didn't even see me coming. John conceded with a nod. There is no way in hell that psalm is there by happenstance. He chose it very deliberately, because he wanted to tell the world from the grave, said William. Tell the world that the earth is flat and that we are a product of divine creation. William nodded. Maybe he was fond of the psalm because it sounds poetic and metaphorical. He might have read the King James every day and settled on it for reasons less cryptic. Not everything is planned or staged, remember that. Sometimes people just do things with no apparent reason. Or maybe someone else chose that psalm for him, posthumously, John suggested. No, he selected it himself. I have read up on von Braun. One hell of a tale, the rise and fall of his career. He was crucial to the Nazi Germany war machine and was directly involved in later stages of World War II. He was a part of the science team that invented the dreaded V-1 rocket, which you may know was used to devastating effect in the bombardments of civilian targets across the sea. Britain sure got hammered by them for 6 long years. They sure did, and von Braun most certainly had blood on his hands from those days. After the war, he was pardoned for his war crimes and brought to America. He was deemed a scientific asset, and they wanted his expertise. And to serve his new country. Not that he was the sole Nazi convert. More than 1,000 Nazi scientists were divided equally between the United States and Soviet Russia once the dust had settled and the Third Reich was obliterated. And that is no conspiracy theory, John. It's a historical fact, and it was called Operation Paperclip. Not exactly their finest hour. I guess you can get away with genocide if one's brainy enough. Anyway, let me continue. Towards the end of his life, von Braun acted peculiarly. People in his close sphere of influence began noticing that he went from being a staunch atheist in the early 60s to becoming a fully fledged born-again Christian, which the psalm on his headstone would confirm. Is it a huge leap to make, or hypothesize that he knew? The man knew, John. He knew that this place was special, and that there truly is a God. If we do live under a firmament, he is certainly in a position to know. I agree, and it is most intriguing. Although to play devils, here we go again. The average Joe on the street would just dismiss everything you just said in a heartbeat and write it off as half-baked indices and a severe case of cherry-picking to weave a tale that works with your theory. They might. But the average Joe is of little interest to me. I will concede that a cryptic message beyond the grave by the NASA chief wouldn't hold up as incriminating evidence if this was a court case, but it is another piece of the puzzle in my mind. They groaned as they saw a line of text appear on the television screen. Dubai. Luggage expected in 9 minutes. We've waited like 15 minutes already. Patience is the name of the game, John. We'll be at the hotel soon enough. And I wasn't finished. Of course you weren't. I am positive you couldn't bleed this topic dry if you so had 1,000 years to talk about it. William chuckled. Speaking of von Braun. Have you researched Operation Fishbowl? I've heard it mentioned in some of the clips I watched. Might have been a Globebusters video. Is it the project when they launched nukes straight up a long time ago? That's the one. The Americans and the Russians for whatever reason decided to fire nuclear bombs straight up into the sky in the early 60s. The project was, on the surface, nothing out of the ordinary. A logical continuation of the Manhattan Project. Simply put, they wanted to measure just how powerful their weapons of mass destruction were when unleashed on Mother Nature. But as I have taught you, John, history is a lie. And every sliver of important historical milestones needs to be looked at with a fresh pair of eyes, including this one. I am convinced that they fired the nuclear bombs up to penetrate the dome. So you believe there is a dome? I am leaning that way, yes. A pressurized system needs a container, and it would explain many an optic phenomena in the sky, like sundogs. But hear me out now. It was called Operation Fishbowl. And the project itself was titled Project Dominic. Do you get it? John was confused. No, what do you mean? What's special about Dominic? Dominic, my friend, means of the Lord, in Latin. So, when you add them together. The fishbowl of the Lord. William smiled. Just so. Another coincidence. Even the most sheepish of souls must admit that the circumstantial evidence is stacking up. There is mystery to this story. John closed his eyes and pictured the azimuthal equidistant projection in his mind's eye. The AE map does resemble a fishbowl, when you think about it. Eerie. Yes, it does. What if they spent years and years trying to pierce the ceiling above, but failed? They eventually called it a day, because it was impenetrable. Or so I would venture to guess. Speculation is your bread and butter. William shrugged. I rest my case. Their luggage finally arrived, and they both sighed a breath of relief. They made their way out of the airport and found themselves once again facing the merciless Western Australian sun, and this time, there was only a hint of that cool breeze in the air they had felt just after getting out of the plane. William reached for something in his bag and revealed it to the world. Ray-Bans. Who do you think we are, men in black? I've been blinded by the light all my life, John. No more, he said and put the shades on. I don't like sunglasses. No surprise there. You are far too stiff to sport them in the first place. Taxi. William waved his arms, and a yellow taxi pulled over. The cab driver rolled the passenger seat window down. Why does he want to pick us up if the cab is taken already? Oi, mate, yelled William, and John cringed. You're off to a good start here, patronizing the locals with a Crocodile Dundee accent. Can we hop in? He asked. The driver peeked his head out from the passenger side. Sure, where are you fellas headed? Ah, right. It wasn't the passenger seat. Left side traffic. We're in the Commonwealth now. The Treasury Hotel. 1 Cathedral Avenue. The scruffy-looking cab driver nodded. It's only the finest hotel in Perth. I'm called Silky, by the way. Get in. Ah. We're booked at the most luxurious hotel in Perth. So much for discretion, William. Although, I wouldn't mind a little bit of luxury to compensate for the mind-numbing amount of hours on the road. William gave him a look just then, as if he knew exactly what he was thinking. What? I have standards. You sure do. Hey, I could have taken my father's private jet here. I mean, we could have. But I chose not to. After enduring 20 hours of flying coach, well, we deserve a treat. Spoil away, my friend. Spoil us away, as if we were Vikings who just looted a monastery. Given that you have a plan for the days to come. Do you have a plan, though? Or are you just making this up as you go along? Whatever the case may be, it's too late to abandon ship. The beautiful coastal scenery whisked away in no time on the freeway. He looked outside the window and took in the sights. The part of me wishes that we'd just call quits on this dubious mission and spend a couple of weeks here under the sun, like any average tourist. But then again, we did not travel all this way for an average reason. The driver pulled up on the driveway of the extravagant hotel, and they both stepped out of the cab. William paid Silky in cash and threw in a little extra tip for making it to the hotel 5 minutes ahead of the Google Maps time planner's projected time of arrival. Just as the taxi had left them both and drove away, the hotel bella came running and helped them with their luggage. They walked right into the lobby of the Treasury and checked in at the counter. After receiving their room key, they went straight towards the elevators, with the porter scurrying along behind them. They stepped into the elevator and held the door for the bellop, who dragged behind with their heavy suitcases. Did you see any kangaroo on the way here, John? Nope. Me neither. What a letdown. Monumentally so. Well, spotting a wild kangaroo isn't what we came here for, is it? Were you finished with your Von Braun Stowe? Hush, William whispered and glanced at the bellop. Once we're alone, he added. The bellop pressed the button for floor 21, which appeared to be the highest floor in the building. As the elevator doors opened with a ringing sound, they saw a long hallway with just one door at the very end of the corridor. After you, William told the sweating bellop who led the way. They got to the door, and John read the sign above. 237. The young bellop put their suitcases down and fumbled with the keys. Penthouse suite, gentlemen. I'm sure I have the keys here somewhere. Hey pal. "Don't worry, they gave us the key in the lobby," said William. The bellop found the key and unlocked the door, and the three of them walked inside. John was awestruck by the unimaginably spectacular view. The suite had a clear view over Perth and panoramic windows 360 degrees around. "I could get used to living here. If you want something, don't hesitate to ask," the bellop said kindly. "Thanks, we will. You look stressed out, kid. Don't let them treat you like cattle. Here's a buck for you. What's your name?" "Wolfie, sir." "Wolfie? That's an odd name. But hey, who cares? I'm not judging your parents, kid. Here's 50 quid for you to spend on something of your choosing. Off you go now. We have some business to attend to, Mr. Willander and I." The bellop abided his wish by scurrying quickly out the door, and William closed it. John spun around the suite, still in awe of the room. He looked down at the city, which bathed in sun, and let his eyes wander towards the deep blue sea and that distant horizon. The horizon? Right. The horizon always rises to eye level, they say. Well, so far, so true. We are not here for sightseeing after all. John started feverishly searching for a hidden stash of alcohol, and to his joy he found a drinks cabinet and a mini bar in the kitchen. The cabinet was filled to the brim with liquors of all kinds. He poured himself a shot of Jameson and downed it in a heartbeat. As he felt the drops of the water of life slowly make its way towards his digestive system, he felt that familiar fiery taste in his breath. It soothed him. "So, here we are. What's the plan?" William was bent over behind, rattling through his suitcase. He murmured and swore to himself. "Blast. I can't seem to find my brooch. Ah, there it is." "Which brooch? I didn't know you wear brooches." "It's a dire wolf brooch." "A dire wolf brooch? What's that?" "Never mind about that, it's not important. I found it." "The plan, yes. The plan. The plan for now is to sit tight, relax, and mentally prepare ourselves for the days to come. A time for us to steel our minds and lick our wounds. That's your grand plan?" "Right now it is." John poured himself another glass of Jameson and waltzed around the suite. "Don't be so antsy, John. Take a breather. Relax a little bit. Look at the view." "Well, I'm not complaining about the view. It's otherworldly." "I just might," said John and walked up towards the panoramic windows and leaned his arm on the glass separating them from a free fall several stories below that would lead to certain death. William walked up next to him and looked at the setting sun over the sea. "Do you see that lighthouse over there, John?" John squinted. "Which lighthouse? Where should I look?" "Not towards the beach, silly. Look there, where I'm pointing. Look at that tiny island at the horizon. There's a tall building rising up there by the shoreline. Do you see it now?" "Yeah. Now I see it." "Good. That isle over there is called Rottenest Island. I ran the numbers while you were on the prowl for booze. Well, not in my head. I went to Metabunk and typed in the coordinates for our location and punched in the coordinates for the lighthouse on Rottenest Island. Metabunk. Might as well cite Snopes while you're at it and hand in your badge. Forsaking your title as the conspiracy prince. I thought you'd shy away from debunker websites. Oh, I do, and it grieves me to have to crawl to the cross and use the services provided by government shill extraordinaire, Mick West. But the website does have an excellent Earth curve calculator tool. Okay, so what about this island? That lighthouse you see over there, that whole island. It should not be visible. It should be hidden behind several hundreds of feet of curvature. John, it's there. It's right there. That is what is so liberating with being a flat earther. I can look at that lighthouse and go, there is the lighthouse, and I see it. If I was a glober, I would have to believe that the lighthouse is being levitated by atmospheric miraging, and what we are seeing is just a hologram of sorts. I reject the hologram, John. I reject the looming explanation. The globe and observable reality are at an impasse here. I see the lighthouse, and it is right there. It's a relieving feeling to see things the way they are. What do you think, John? Is the lighthouse really there, or is it being magically lifted up over the curve? I don't know. I want the truth. That is all that matters to me. If the earth is flat, then I want to believe that. If the earth is a globe, then that is what I want to believe in. Don't be married to an idea, William. Don't be married to the flat earth. If we do run into unquestionable proof along the way that we have indeed been chasing our tails with this expedition, if it turns out that we live on a sphere after all, then we both should walk away and accept reality. Promise me that. I promise to walk away if so. But that day will never come, I am sure of it. Not until I am facing absolute proof that our ancestors fell out of the rear end of monkeys and landed on a spinning ball. It would be hard for me to let go, I will concede that, because I am absolutely certain that the model we've been taught exists only because a certain belief system of a select few has decided it to be so. Edwin Hubble once said that the thought of the Earth being geocentric was a horror. And that we needed to escape the horror of finding ourselves in a unique position. They've sold us a pre-packaged mathematical construct to counter observable reality, John. William spun around from the panoramic window and took a seat on the couch while John drummed his fingers impatiently on the glass. Honestly, I thought you would have it all mapped out by now. Are we going to hang out with the surfer dudes down by the beach or head out on a safari? What gives? Antarctica isn't going away, John. It's not going to be swallowed by the ocean like the city of Atlantis. It will be there by the morning still. As we both know, there is no tour guide out there that could possibly prepare us for our undertaking, so we will have to do this methodically and gently. He sighed for himself and looked at John. Will planning this out be super easy, barely an inconvenience? No, but I have it covered. Be a good lad and pour me some of that whiskey, will you? I wouldn't mind joining in on this pre-game party you've kicked off without my consent. John did as he was commanded and poured his friend a glass of whiskey and took seat right next to him. Thanks, he said while raising the small glass to his lips. William can act casual and flippant about this, but I see through it. He doesn't have a plan. What are we even doing here? I put my life on the line for this endeavor. This will be a complete disaster if we continue walking this road in such a haphazard manner. I might be on the brink of a momentous mistake. William took another sip and slouched back into the comfort of the couch. He looked at the horizon and saw that the sun was about to set. I think we should bring as few crew members along as humanly possible. The more folks we bring, the more mouths there will be to feed. And the element of risk will be more severe. I want to select trustworthy few on this. How do we find them? I'm working on that. If staring at the Perth sunset equals working, then yeah. And the icebreaker? William brushed it aside. That was just a crazy idea. Mind you, I wouldn't exactly mind jumping aboard a Titan like that and cleave right through the Antarctic shoreline, as if I was Moses at the Red Sea. But it would not help us much. We can't cleave the ice forever, as it extends for thousands of miles inward. We will have to walk. Also, an icebreaker is hardly a subtle beast. We will keep this as low profile as humanly possible. We haven't done anything illegal yet. An icebreaker will attract unwanted attention from the agencies monitoring these waters. I will spend my money on a smaller vessel, said William. But we are about to traverse Antarctica. A task which is deemed to be nigh impossible unless one's commanding a whole military unit there, like Admiral Byrd. Is it even possible to be subtle about this when we are going to need to bring resources that will have to last for weeks or even months? William's flickering eyes showed signs of concern. You are right. What we are about to embark on doesn't exactly reek of subtlety. And the rightful concerns for the logistics isn't the only demon we have to face. I am weighing the options on something else. Which demon are we talking about? My father. He's here in Perth, like I told you before. I remember. He's partially the reason as to why we are here in Western Australia and not somewhere else. Ideally, I don't want to reach out to him, but I thought that if a situation arose where we would find ourselves on the verge of this project being stalled, or if there was no other way of doing this on our own, that he would be a nifty ace in the hand to play. A lifeline. Of course, involving him would entail lying about our motives and going under the assumption that he would play ball and not rat us out about that fake trip to his tot of ours, looking at imaginary Mark Twain houses. I'm guessing that is what Mother has told him anyway. Should I take the risk, John? He could halt this entire project if he could, and if he knew what we are really up to. I think he might. No responsible parent would ever let their child wander off searching for the ends of the earth. John allayed his fears. I don't think you should worry about him blowing the whistle on that. Our destination is so far beyond the average person's mental capacity that it literally isn't even on the table for them. Even a sharp man like he would never dream of guessing where we want to tread unless he's looked into this as deeply as we have, which I doubt. Oh, he hasn't. It would be the equivalent of Elon Musk looking into the flat earth theory. It's also beyond people like that in position of power to even toy with this as anything more than a joke concocted by bored kids trolling on Reddit or 4chan, said William. John nodded in approval. I will say though, I am a bit concerned by how leisurely you have planned this voyage. I would have thought that you had this figured out right down to the finest detail. William suddenly had a fiery look in his eyes. This is no field trip. This is for real, and we need to proceed with caution. And we will go all in, worry not, when I make the call that the coast is clear. And John, we will go all in. You have my word on that. It's now or never. Who knows how this screwed up world will look like in a year from now. They are going to play their final card in the deck soon, very soon. And John, by all the gods I swear to you this. That we will do our absolute best to prevent that card ever being played. The power elite will unleash their Deus Ex Machina weapon. A dormant weapon, and we have been programmed for its inevitable awakening for decades. Deus Ex Machina? What are you talking about? I'm talking about a literal divine intervention. The grandest false flag operation ever orchestrated. I am talking of their staged alien invasion. Alien invasion? Yes, and if they pull that off before the veil is lifted to the world, then all is lost, John. All will be lost. I'm not joking. William appeared to be trembling. John rose from the couch and waltzed around nervously. I still don't understand. Okay, let me lay the groundwork for you. The cliff notes, yes. Where to start? We have been programmed to expect an impending alien invasion for nearly 100 years now. It has been foreshadowed in radio, television, novels everywhere. The mainstream media have been pushing it to the forefront, always reminding us of who else is out there in this vast universe of ours. And it has been most successful. If you were to ask anyone, regardless of their age, gender, or ethnicity, an astounding number of them would answer in a resounding yes to one particular question. And which question is that? Are aliens real? I would have answered yes to that question only a month ago. If there really are a septillion of Earth-like planets out there, and an infinite amount of galaxies, nebulas, and stars, then there really is no statistical reason to assume that planet Earth is the only habitable place for human-like species. But seeing as I'm not sure if we are on a planet anymore. And you are guessing that the powers that be are using this knowledge to their advantage. That their fake alien attack would be believed by all, and that it would unite all mankind and rally under the banner of a one-world government. Yes. Something along those lines. Ronald Reagan kept hammering home this very point in many of his speeches during his presidency back in the 80s. The fact that there would be no event more effective to end our petty squabbles if we were under siege from something out of this world, an outer planetary invasion. I didn't know that. Well, now you do know. And there's something else I want to dovetail back to while we are talking about this. Werner von Braun. Do you know what his last dying words were to his wife? I have no idea. He said. William coughed and cleared his throat. Beware of the fake alien invasion. It's coming. John was skeptical. How do we know he really said that though? A final cryptic rosebud-like message to the world. That sounds like an urban myth, to tell you the truth. It's not, John. His wife confirmed it, and those were not just his dying words. Towards the end of his life, he talked about this a great deal. His remaining family members all tell the same tale. He spoke of a staged alien invasion that was to come, and he warned them about it. He wanted them to prepare. In light of this, John, do not doubt me for a second. I will see it done, and we will be in Antarctica soon. One way or the other. I shouldn't have doubted you, or the cause, he said remorsefully. We're in this together. It's all right, John. It's all right to suffer through a faltering moment when on the brink of the voyage of a lifetime. A refill of that scotch. I'd love to. Or a White Russian if you would have it in you. White Russian. I'm not the dude, John. And you are not nearly as cool as his bowling buddies. Besides, we don't have any Kahlua milk here. Another fine glass of the water of life for you, I think. John reluctantly nodded in approval of the prospect. William walked over to the drinks cabinet and unscrewed the Jameson bottle. He filled their 2 glasses to the brim and handed one back to John. A toast. To us. To the Admiral Byrd and the Captain James Cook of the 21st century. Cheers, he said and raised his glass. John chuckled. Laying it on a bit thick there, are we not? Oh well. Who's Byrd and who's Cook? I'm Byrd, naturally. The Indiana Jones of the 50s. You are far too conservative and old-fashioned. Therefore, you are Captain Cook. I salute you. "Here, here," roared John and took a sip. He put the glass down and looked out over Perth once again through the panoramic windows. His gaze wandered from the city itself by the coast, down to the beach and the sea. Far away over by the horizon, the sun had nearly set. The ocean bathed in a crimson color palette, and John allowed himself to dream of the voyage to come. He closed his eyes. "We are really going to do this? Gosh. We are so close now, yet it still seems so far away. Let the waters roar, Jack." "We are," William said firmly. "Whatever the cost. And I have decided. We are going to seek aid from one of the most influential men in the world. Oscar Milton is his name." Excited. "What on earth is that thing?" Oscar Milton stared at the creature in awe. He had never laid eyes on a creature so obscure looking. "It's a wombat, sir. A marsupial." "Thank you, Allison. Fascinating creatures." Allison Ellsworth reached for her handbag on the floor and started poking around until she found the item she was looking for. She pulled up the iPad and googled for quick facts about wombats. "The wombat is the #1 highlight here at Caversham Wildlife Park, sir, along koalas, which are equally as popular. People from all around the world flock to this very spot in order to see a glimpse of them. It's a pilgrimage of sorts. They are most beloved," she said and cleared her throat. "Oh, and the word wombat comes from the language of the Aboriginals. Interesting, interesting. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the time for an Oriental language crash course today." Oscar turned around from the wombat enclosure and took his beige cap off his head. He looked up to the sky. There was not a cloud in sight, and he felt as if the sun was soon to burn his skin to a crisp. He stroked his long sweat-dripping beard and donned the cap again. "I guess this is how it would feel like being thrown into a furnace." "What's the time, Allison?" "Noon. 12:03 to be precise." "It's been that long? Christ. We better head back. The convention starts at 2. I can't strut right into the convention, looking as if I just came back from a tour in Amazonas, where I had to machete myself forward for 3 weeks straight. I need a shower. I would gladly have spent more time here, wandering amongst the koalas, penguins, and the rest of the exotic animals, but I am needed elsewhere." They walked out of the zoo through the main entry gate, and Allison phoned for a taxi, which arrived almost immediately. "Pepper's King Square Hotel. It's on Wellington Street," said Oscar. "I know the way," said the driver calmly, and drove away from the zoo. "Left side traffic. I've been here for 5 weeks, but I still can't get the hang of this thing. And before that, Indonesia a whole week. My learning curve is steep indeed. I'm getting old." As he let his mind wander off to the convention, his skin began to crawl at the thought of the speech he had to give. All of a sudden, the iPhone in his pocket buzzed. "William? And he's calling me from Australia. William's here. A technical malfunction, no doubt. My son's back home in Sweden, en route to his Todd. William? There's something off with my phone. It says that you are ringing me from hereabouts, down under. Your phone is telling it true. There is no bug or malfunction, I can tell you. I am here, Dad. In Australia, Perth. And I need your help." Allison noticed that her boss was in a state of complete bewilderment and confusion from whatever the caller had said to him. "But, what are you doing here? Did you lie? Did you lie to your mother?" The other line was dead silent for a long moment until he spoke. "Yes. I lied about as Todd. Why would you do that? And why in the name of God are you here, and in which part of the city are you now? It's a complicated affair. I mean we are at the Treasury on Cathedral Avenue. I'm here with my friend John Willander, a friend from class. Can we meet today? You've lured a fellow classmate to accompany you down to Australia. And he's also supposed to be in as Todd, I presume?" "That is true. What in the love of Christ are you up to?" Oscar screamed in fury. William did not reply. "We will meet all right. Now." He hung up the phone and coughed. "Driver. Forget Wellington Street. Drive straight to the Treasury on Cathedral Avenue. And step on it."